Today we're going to talk about classical Greece. So we're going to get into the Persian War that we've been talking about, kind of leading up to it. We're going to get into the Peloponnesian War, and then we're going to talk a lot about Athens today and kind of the creation of the Athenian Empire. Okay? All right, lots to do. So the challenge of Persia. So the Greeks are going to come into contact with the Persian Empire to the east. 499 BC, the Ionian Greeks, they're in West Asia Minor or the Anatolian Peninsula, and that's present-day Turkey. Okay, so they're going to revolt, but it's going to be unsuccessful against the Persians. Okay, so the Darius, who's the Persian ruler, he's going to try to seek revenge, and he's going to go to mainland Greece to do that. So in 490 BC, the Athenians, they were outnumbered, but the Athenians defeated the Persians at the Battle of Marathon. So this is about 26 miles away from Athens, approximately 26.2 miles. And so this picture here shows Phidippides. He sprinted, the story goes, he sprinted the 26.2 miles from Marathon to Athens to deliver the message Nike, which means victory, and then he collapsed and died. Okay? So that's him there delivering the message. So that's where we get the word marathon too, by the way. So after Darius died, Xerxes is going to become king, and he vowed revenge to avenge the Battle of Marathon. So the Athenians are going to start to build up their navy. So they had about 200 ships by about 480 BC. So Xerxes is going to invade with a massive army, 180,000 troops, and thousands of warships and supply vessels are going to accompany the Persians against 7,000 Greeks, and they're going to hold them off for 2 days at the pass at Thermopylae. So if you've ever seen the movie 300, they kind of show this. Now that's a horribly inaccurate movie, but the Greeks did, as the movie does show, did funnel them into the pass at Thermopylae. But a Greek traitor is going to show the Persians a path around, and they're going to outflank the Greeks, and they're going to destroy them. And so the Athenians are going to abandon their city, but near the island of Salamis, the swifter Greek navy is going to outmaneuver the Persian ships and defeat their navy. So the Persian navy is defeated. A few months later, at Plataea, they defeated the Persians, their army. Okay, so basically the navy cut off their supply line, and they were forced to surrender. Okay. Okay, so this right here shows the different battles here that we're talking about. So you can see here's Marathon. That's where the Battle of Marathon was. There's Athens. Okay, and then all these red lines here, this is the movement of the Persians, and then the movement of the Greeks is the blue, and you can see there's a lot of movement going on, but there's Thermopylae there, so they were able to outflank them, move in through mainland Greece, and then this right here is where the Greeks headed them off, and that's where they defeated them. Okay, so the Persians were all around Greece before their major defeat right here, okay, at Plataea. And we're stuck. There we go. All right, so after the Persian defeat, the Athens is going to become the leader of the Greek world, and so they're going to form what's called the Delian League. Okay, it's a defensive alliance, and basically the Delian League is going to expel the Persians from almost all of the Greek city-states in the Aegean, and the League's chief officials were all Athenians. Okay, so Athens is right down here. Okay, and then all these yellow, this is all part of the Delian League. And by controlling the Delian League, Athens is going to start to build up their empire. So under Pericles, he's the prime figure in Athenian politics from 461 to 429. Athens is going to expand their empire. And so their democracy, remember we talked about their democracy, and their culture is going to thrive, and this is going to be known as the Age of Pericles. And Pericles is going to turn Athens into a direct democracy. So the people are going to participate in government through mass meetings, and so every male citizen is able to participate. Every male citizen is allowed to vote. The issue is that most residents were not necessarily citizens. So they had about 43,000 male citizens who were over 18. Those guys made up the assembly, but only a few thousand ever really attended regularly. And these guys passed all the laws, elected public officials, decided on war and foreign policy, and anybody can speak for whatever length of time. So decisions were very, very, very slow. Okay, so it was an issue to get things passed. But Pericles is going to help the lower classes to participate in government. So one of the things he's going to do is he's going to pay office holders. So, like, one of the reasons why people in government get paid now is because he set this precedent all this time ago. He had 10 officials or generals that directed the policy of government, and they're going to develop what's known as ostracism. Ostracism was designed to protect themselves from overly ambitious politicians. So, if 6,000 of the 43,000 approximately assembly members voted so, a person could be exiled for 10 years. So, if somebody starts to become too powerful and the people don't like it, they can vote them out. Okay, and then they cannot come into Athens for 10 years. Athens became the center of Greek culture as art, architecture, and philosophy are going to really start to flourish. And Pericles boasted that Athens had become the school of Greece, okay, because there was so much intellectual advancements going on at the time, okay? So the Great Peloponnesian War. So this is going to be a major war between Athens and Sparta. So two vastly different societies. Okay, so Athens and Sparta are going to war with each other. Sparta and its allies feared the growth of the Athenian Empire. And after a series of disputes, the Peloponnesian War is going to break out in 431 BC. So it's going to begin with a Spartan siege on Athens, but Athens basically planned to win by staying behind its walls and then receiving supplies from its colonies and its powerful navy. Pericles knew if they engaged in open battle, because the Spartan army is so powerful, that they would lose. So they had to keep it about the navy. Okay, so 430 BC, though, excuse me, a plague is going to break out in Athens. And about 1/3 of the people die, including Pericles, in 429. And the Athenians are going to fight on for another 25 years, which is actually pretty impressive. But they're going to be finally defeated in 405 BC when their navy is defeated. They're going to tear down their walls, and then their empire is destroyed, and that's the end of the war. But it's a very long war, okay? It's about 27 years. So this right here shows the different city-states and kind of their allegiances. All right, so you have Athens is the yellow, and then Sparta and their allies are the orange. Okay, so you can see, surrounding Athens here is enemies. Okay, but on this side, on the coast and that, the Athenians have the advantage, which is why they were relying on their navy. Okay, so this war is going to weaken the Greek city-states, and it's going to ruin cooperation among them. So for the next 66 years, Sparta, Athens, and Thebes are going to struggle for who is going to be the dominant city-state. So these internal struggles are actually going to cause the Greeks to ignore the growing power of Macedonia in the north. So here's Macedonia. And this is going to cost them their freedom, okay? The Macedonians, spoiler alert, are going to come into Greece and they're going to take control. All right, so before that happens, let's talk about Athens. So Athens did have the largest population of any Greek city-state, but like I said before, only the males had political power. And foreigners were protected by the laws and did have some responsibility, so they were still, if you lived in, let's say Sparta, and you moved to Athens, you still had to provide military service, still had to pay taxes. That's what funding festivals is. There was also about 100,000 slaves. Slavery was very common in Athens. So many Athenians owned at least one slave. And a lot of these slaves were people who had become in debt to someone, and they were paying off that debt. but these slaves worked in industry, in the fields, and in the household. And then the government even owned slaves, and those slaves worked on public construction projects. Okay, but those slaves. So remember, 100,000 slaves, 43,000 citizens. Okay, so it just goes to show you, and that doesn't include like there's also females, that are not slaves, and so there's a very large population of Athens, and a small part of it was only allowed to participate in the government. So women were allowed to participate in religious festivals, but that was it. They were not allowed in government at all. They could not own property beyond personal items, and they always had to have a male guardian. Okay, if they did leave the house, they had to have a companion, so some kind of male who was with them to make sure that they were protected and safe. And an Athenian woman was expected to be a good wife, to bear children, and to keep up the household. Girls did not get a formal education, so any education they received came from their mothers, and they were expected to marry around 14 years old. And when they married, it was not boys that are 14, usually it was boys that were much older, men that were much older. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to answer the video questions for this. And this is about a day in the life of an ancient Athenian. And then that's it. That's your processor for today. Make sure the volume's up enough. Here we go.
It's 427 BCE, and the worst internal conflict ever to occur in the ancient Greek world is in its fourth year. The Peloponnesian War is being fought between the city-states of Athens and Sparta, as well as their allies. The Athenians can't match the formidable Spartan army on land, so they've abandoned the countryside and moved inside the walls surrounding their city and port, now provisioned by a superior fleet and extensive maritime empire. The cramped conditions have taken a toll, and a recent plague wiped out a third of the population. But city life goes on. Archias and Dexaleia live in the center of Athens. As a painter of high-class pottery, Archias is relatively well off and takes great interest in the city's affairs. Dexaleia, on the other hand, can't participate in politics or own property. The couple are grateful to the gods that 3 of their 4 children, a son and 2 daughters, have survived past infancy. Many parents see daughters as a liability, since they require dowries to find husbands. But Archias is confident that his wealth will allow him to make good matches for them, without going bankrupt. Like many Athenians, the family owns slaves. Originally from Thrace, they were captured in war. Thrata does most of the housework and helps raise the children. Philon is a pedagogos, who supervises the son's education, teaching him reading and writing. Archias is up early because there's a meeting of the Ecclesia, the assembly of citizens, taking place at dawn. Before setting out, he burns incense and pours a libation at the small shrine in the courtyard, on behalf of his entire household. Dexaleia will remain at home all day, teaching her daughters domestic skills. Later, she'll retire to the inner courtyard for some fresh air. When Archias arrives at the Agora, the civic and commercial heart of the city, he finds the square swarming with his fellow citizens, native-born adult males who have completed military training. Attached to the central monument is a notice board with the meeting's agenda. Today there's only one item of discussion: what to do with the people of Mytilene, a city on the island of Lesbos where a revolt against Athenian rule has just been put down. The meeting takes place on a hill west of the Acropolis, known as the Pnyx. The word means tightly packed, and the crowd of 5,000 citizens makes it clear why. The heralds purify the hill by sprinkling its boundary with pig's blood and call for order. As everyone sits on benches facing the platform, the presiding officer opens the meeting with the words, "Tis agoreven boulete," who wishes to address the assembly. One by one, citizens speak, some advising mercy, others bent on vengeance. A motion is proposed to execute all the Mytileneans and enslave their women and children because they betrayed their Athenian allies during a time of war. A majority raises their right hands in favor. Once the meeting's over, Archias heads back to the Agora to buy food and wine. Hundreds have gathered there to discuss the results, many unhappy with the decision. When Archias returns home, he tells Dexilea about the debate. She thinks that killing the innocent as well as the guilty is harsh and counterproductive, and tells him as much. Around dusk, Archias goes to a friend's house for a symposium. The 9 men drink wine and discuss the meeting well into the night. Archias shares his wife's opinion, urging mercy, and his friends eventually agree. Before dawn, something unprecedented happens. Heralds circulate throughout Athens, announcing the council has called another meeting. The second debate is equally heated, but a new resolution to execute only the leaders of the revolt narrowly passes. Yet there's a problem. A ship with orders to carry out the first resolution was dispatched the previous day. And so another ship quickly set sail to countermand the order, a race of democracy against time. Did you enjoy this glimpse of daily life in an ancient civilization? If so, check out our Day in the Life playlist. You can also help us bring more educational videos to lifelong learners around the world by making a small monthly contribution on our Patreon page at patreon.com/TEDEd.
All right, so that's it for today. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.